is it with those wholesome chapters at the moment? With every new chapter, it gets clearer and clearer that this flashback really works as a standalone story arc with a main protagonist, a main opponent, an epic journey, and everything else a great story really needs. This story is basically what One Piece would have been like if Oda had wanted to turn it into a single volume story. And how did that work out? But in all seriousness, while every one of these chapters obviously works especially well since we already know so much about the story world of One Piece and its characters, if you go back to the start of the flashback and pretend you didn't know anything about it, it still works perfectly from a storytelling perspective. The hero is introduced with a clear desire, seeing the world, and he has a moral need, learning how to take responsibility and saving his country. And we have his allies and opponents, that in some shape or form are a variation to that theme. There are more elements in this that explain why this arc works so well in isolation, but obviously what makes it even better is the fact that we already have an extensive amount of background knowledge about many of the people and places involved. And of course, knowing how legendary the likes of Whitebeard and Roger truly are raises the stakes of this entire sequence immensely. While I've been complaining a lot that I would have liked to see more focus on the scabbards, with the way that this flashback is playing out right now, I kind of have to take that statement back. Because in the presence of characters like Whitebeard, Roger and co, Oden really is the only logical choice as a focus and main character of the story, if you don't want your hero to sink into irrelevance next to these other legends. Enough rumbling now, however, let's get into this awesome chapter full of adventure and intrigue. This chapter really is split into two parts, one focusing on Oden, Whitebeard and Roger, and one focusing on Orochi. And since both are so impactful, it's really hard to say which one is supposed to be the subplot here. Chapter 965 of One Piece is out, and I guess we start off with the continuation of Oden's journey. As always, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this one, so make sure to let me know in the comments. Also, if you enjoy this type of video, consider giving me a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. While learning more and more about the world of One Piece, Oden seems to be more interested in geography than teching. And while studying a ridiculously undetailed map of the world, Toki reveals to us that, as expected, she actually has roots in Wano, even though she has never been there before. I really can't wait to get a small glimpse of her past and of the Void Century from her. However, she seems to have finally found the purpose of her time travels in Oden, and we get the possibly shortest love story of all time between the two. Because literally 5 panels later, we already see Momo being born on board of the ship of the Whitebeard pirates. We see Whitebeard himself finally splitting up the crew into divisions when it starts to get too big, and Oden is named as the 2nd Division Commander and therefore Ace's predecessor. His reaction to having to take responsibility, however, shows us just how adverse Oden is to leadership. This will have to be the main point of development for his character in this flashback, learning how to take responsibility for his country and his people, and how to use his power for the sake of others. Then we actually get to see a young Blackbeard joining the crew. And even though we don't really get to see any further interactions from him in this chapter, it is already great to see that he and Oden actually got to meet. I think it's pretty much impossible to say at this point if he is only a kid here, or actually already harbors his dark thoughts and plans. I guess he most likely does. However, I'm very certain that we'll be getting an entire flashback for Blackbeard once it's time for Luffy's final battle against him. And I'm sure there is a lot to learn there as well. Finally, we make another jump in time into the 4th year of Oden's traveling with Whitebeard. The crew witnesses all animals, including sea kings, fleeing from an island that we know just too well, Ruscaina, where Luffy was trained by Rayleigh. And we now also know how Rayleigh actually knew about that island, because he's there with Roger and their crew. And my god, how badass is that last panel? Rayleigh and Roger looking absolutely brutal in here. But we also get to see a fishman in the background that I don't think we have ever seen before. And he also looks like a beast. And of course we also have Buggy and Shanks there, who seem to appear in almost every other chapter now. and I'm starting to suspect that Buggy might play a much bigger role towards the end of the story than I thought possible for a long time. And we have Scopper Gaban, who I hope everyone is now finally convinced is not Denjiro. And I think it's pretty fair to speculate that this will be the time when Oden actually joins up with Roger to travel to Raftel. And also, no doubt that Toki will have her hands in that decision. I'm fairly certain that she will be very much aware of Roger's importance. And speaking of Roger, even though his sickness seems to be quite advanced at this point, he seems to be in very good shape and in even better spirits. You can kind of tell that Rayleigh is quite concerned about his captain's health though, but Roger just seems to enjoy his life to the fullest here. And I truly can't wait to see all of these monsters coming together in the next couple of chapters. But now I think it's time to get to the other plot in this chapter, which might not contain as much bare-chested manliness and childbirth, but instead delivers us intrigues and mystery. We see Sukiyaki on his deathbed surrounded by the remaining 4 daimyo, with one looking so much like Zoro that it's not even subtle anymore. Sukiyaki has decided to make Orochi the substitute ruler of Wano while Oden is away. And naturally, Yasu is immediately suspicious of Orochi, who reveals his family name for the very first time here. Because as it turns out, the Kurozumi clan used to be a daimyo family as well, that used to reign over Curry. However, the clan was later disbanded by the shogun for attempting to take the power over Wano. And we finally get a backstory and motivation for Orochi. As it turns out, Orochi was raised by his grandmother, a witch-like character that told Orochi about how his grandfather assassinated the other daimyos and attempted to overthrow the Kozuki. In the end though, he failed and was forced to take his own life. It is interesting to note that the old woman gives a strikingly similar speech here to the one that Doflamingo gave about justice and how the ones in power ultimately decide what is right and what is wrong. And on another interesting note, all of the families in power have the Japanese character for moon in their name, except for Kurozumi. And it is also important to mention that one of the daimyo families is the Amatsuki clan, in other words, Toki's clan. Not only does this suggest once again the importance of the moon, but it also shows us that Toki's clan still continues to this day. The old woman then reveals something even more confusing, the power of Mr. Two's mane fruit, which once again raises a whole bunch of new questions in my mind. She seems to be the true mastermind behind Orochi's betrayal and guides him in how to topple the shogun and take the position of shogun for himself. As we suspected, joining Yasu was all part of that plan, but what we didn't know was how close Orochi actually managed to get to Oden. So much so actually that Oden called him his younger brother, and he even was the one to introduce him to his father. Orochi was the one who was responsible for giving the shogun his medicine, which in turn made it easy for him to poison him. As it turns out, however, the old woman had also already taken the identity of Sukiyaki's advisor. And I seriously wonder what the hell happened to her. She must have died at some point, right? Because her devil fruit now belongs to someone else. Unless, of course, Mr. Two is not who he says he is, though that would feel like a very contrary thing to do to his character so far. But I think it's astounding to see how Orochi has been manipulated into taking power by this old and bitter woman. She planned everything and even gave Orochi his devil fruit. And at this point, I truly wonder how everything will play out. Because Oden will become shogun, right? So Orochi will have to relinquish his power at some point and then take it back later? I really can't wait to see how all of this unfolds, to be honest. Well, all in all, guys, this chapter was filled with so much incredible stuff. I can't wait to see all of your thoughts and theories on this. So make sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, share it, and smash that subscribe button. But of course, as always, you can also dislike, not share, and unsubscribe. It's a free world, people. I hope to see you around next time, and until then, have a wonderful week.